8-0 lead. But Castleford's reply was a classic. Beardmore breaks away, now watch for the cheeky kick. Then the next problem, 3 reds against him, but Clark number 2 misses it and Beardmore gets the touchdown. In the second half, with Rovers 10-6 up, they threatened to take Castleford apart. Another Miller try coming up now. No real danger initially. But here's the sidestep coming up. Wish I could do that. And a gap appears, try number 2. Just. At 16-6, Rovers were in complete control, and minutes later, more so, as Clark gallops over in the corner with no Castleford defence in sight. Then Dorahey landed the goal of the match, and at 22-6, surely, Castleford were finished. No way. After 65 minutes, Castleford came back, and fittingly, the man who created it was Kevin Ward. You can't really miss him, number 8 and about 2 yards wide, but also a tremendous player. Marchant gets the pass to score. Beardmore's goal made it 22-12. 7 minutes left and Castleford strike again. Recognise this man, Kevin Ward again. And once more Marchant is waiting to get the final pass, or rather bounce, to score. Despite Beardmore's goal, it was 22-18 to Rovers, with Miller's 2 tries decisive. Gavin Miller, of course, was the man of the match, quite rightly so as well. Tremendous game he had.
I thought he had a marvellous game, yes. I think Gavin's realised today that if he does run forward at defences in Great Britain, he'll do a lot more damage, and that's just what he's done today. 2 tremendous performances, I thought, were Gavin on our side and Kevin Ward on the Castleford side. He had a tremendous game. Yes, Kevin Ward is such a powerful player, isn't he? He was the one that caused you problems towards the end. He caused us problems because he was hitting it up just outside of the rucks, and he was getting rid of the ball, and he was figuring in both Castleford tries late on. Great Britain coach perhaps has a few pointers here? I would think so, yeah. I think probably Morris would have a look at Kevin Ward today and think he's found somebody there.
The Challenge Cup, Rugby League's most prestigious trophy, and in less than 24 hours, we'll know who's won it. Good evening. The scene is set for the game's big day at Wembley. In last season's final, Castleford triumphed. Tomorrow, Halifax and St Helens do battle for the honours. It's the culmination of a season of mixed fortunes for the game. While many of the top clubs have prospered, for those at the bottom, it's been a fight for survival, with strong predictions that some will go to the wall. Later in the programme, as well as previewing tomorrow's final, we'll be discussing this growing divide. David Oxley, the Rugby League Secretary-General, and Malcolm Reilly, the Great Britain coach, will be giving their views. But first, let's turn the clock back to early October and the arrival of the Australian Test team. When they were here in '82, they swept all before them and didn't lose a game. The man who was charged with trying to plot the downfall of these latest tourists was Maurice Bamford, the then Great Britain coach. He's been reliving some of the agony for us.
Everyone knew that the 1986 Australians were going to be a handful even before they touched down. But surely this side couldn't be as strong as the '82 Invincibles. Peter Sterling in the middle there was generally accepted throughout the world as the best scrum half. Some of the other players weren't so well known, but the big guy there with the beard, Noah Cleal, he's some player. I wish I'd never seen him before. It's a sign of their strength when someone like Big Mal Meninga, the scourge of '82, couldn't even get into Wally Lewis's team. The setting for the first Test match was a masterstroke. Old Trafford. 50,000 spectators packed in, and my team, Great Britain, raring to go with a chance to put the record book straight. Just look at that, the biggest crowd for a Test match in the history of this game in this country. I'm not making any excuses. The preparation had been tremendous, possibly the best ever for any Great Britain side. Lewis. But while we'd improved, so had the Australians.
And he's in, yes, to Miles, 9 minutes gone, first try to Australia.
I've never seen a team with so much all-round ability, no weakness from full-back to loose forward.
Lewis, oh, that's a good ball. To Miles, he's got space on the outside here. O'Connor, he's in.
But we had our moments, and this was one of them.
Oh, beautiful ball here, Joe Lydon. He's got Henderson Gale, can he beat Linder? He's got Hanley's going for the corner himself. Oh, this is a magnificent try! Magnificent try!
For me, the time the sailors, and for a while the Australians wobbled. Then they changed up a gear.
Oh, that's a good run. He's got Miles with him. And that's what he can do. They've got the class.
The press gave me a roasting for picking the same side for the second test at Ellen Road, but I felt the team needed stability. Hanley was injured and we missed him terribly, and we got punished for our basic errors.
Gary Jack, and he must be into the corner there. He is, and all that came off a loft ball.
For the third test, changes were necessary. Injuries forced some of them, but the inclusion of Andy Gregory at scrum half enabled us to give the kind of display I've been searching for.
These two half-backs, Sterling and Lewis, already for my money.
At last, a bit of pride. In fact, the Lion rode. The only trouble was that damn kangaroo did as well.
But this is still dangerous. They've got Lindner running, and he's in. No problem. That's a good ball from Pinner. That's what he's in for. Now here's a golden opportunity. Gary Schofield. He must score. He does. Now that is a first-class try. That's as good as any try we've seen in this series.
But at least in that performance, there's something I hope for Maureen to build on in the future.
Maurice Bamford, the former Great Britain coach, looking back over the Aussies' clean sweep. It's now 9 years since we last beat them in a test match. So what is it that makes them such a powerful force in rugby league? To try to gain an insight, we commissioned this special report from David Fordham of Australia's Network 10.
To dummy half. On to Sterling. Sterling gets a pass to Lewis. Lewis is on the surge, and he's over!
Australia's whitewash of Great Britain in the three-match Ashes series late last year again underlined the widening gap in playing standards between the two countries. Great Britain's performance was a far cry from the 50s and 60s, where the famous white, red and blue jumpers were more akin to the role of master than the now position of pupil. Those days must seem centuries old at present, but history books do record the dominance. Players like Alex Murphy, David Bolton, Vince Cornelius, Eric Ashton and Dick Huddett once held over their green and gold enemy.
Eluding Gasnier, Beattie and Rasmussen, but watch Parrish slow him down. In comes speedy winger Cleary to finish off the tackle.
So the obvious question remains, what has caused the tremendous gap in playing standards between rugby league's greatest and traditional adversaries?
The speed of the game's the major difference, and I think that comes back to a couple of things. One is their attitude. Their attitude's more of a social type football over there, and the other thing is their fitness levels. They just they don't put in as much time into their preparation, and that reflects in their fitness.
The Australian training schedules, is there any comparison to be made with the English club sides?
Well, not that especially at Widnes, you know, it was mainly a few laps. Then the oval game, a tick and pass, as they call it, and then very little conditioning, if any, and then over the pub for a few pints. It was, you know, that was the go.
But to their credit, the fact is that they play a lot more games. They rely totally on match fitness.
Yeah, I suppose they're not playing in 25-degree heat, but they do play a lot of games. But on the same token, the two games they play in 1 week over there probably wouldn't be as hard as one game here you're playing a weekend.
The last three Ashes series have witnessed a whitewash in favour of Australia. Undoubtedly, they lead the way in fitness, in coaching methods, the marketing of the game, media exposure, and the resultant crowd-pulling potential. One wonders the right direction the English League must now take to narrow the difference in playing standards.
They're catching up slowly. I think they're starting to realise now, after a long time, that fitness is of course, the ultimate in the sport they play, because the Sydney sides are so perfectly fit, whereas English sides tend to be a little bit lazier. But, you know, I'm not trying to take anything away from them. They have got some very skillful players over in England, and they're the players such as Ellery, Hanley and those type of blokes are the guys that give Australia so much trouble. And if they ever do get as fit as Australia, the English national side, I mean, if they ever do get as fit, well, we're going to be in a lot of trouble.
It's important to note that even at schoolboy level, Australia's elite young athletes are exposed to the television audience in the long-running Commonwealth Bank Cup competition, a knockout championship in its 13th year. From this platform, 6 players emerged to make their mark with the 86 Kangaroos, and players of class they were. Sterling, Lamb, Sirenen, Alexander, Langmack and Elias.
As far as the Great Britain players are concerned, we've seen them come out in their summer to play in the Sydney Grade Premiership. How big a step is it for them as far as fitness is concerned to start with?
Well, I hope it's not going to be a very big step for Gary Schofield and Lee Crooks, but being realistically, it is a fair change from English Rugby League. I think some of the skills are different, particularly around the play-the-ball area and dummy half area, and the fitness. It's a huge jump to come here in Sydney and play and have to take the knocks week in, week out on our much harder grounds.
Do you think it'll be a culture shock for them? They have had a couple of seasons out here before.
Well, they're going to adapt much better than most English Rugby League players would, simply because they've been here and they know what to expect. I hope they're going to be well prepared.
Sydney's first-grade premiership, the Winfield Cup, is where it's make or break. Players can command huge money to play and to prove themselves in the toughest arena of them all. Naturally, professionalism in all aspects of the game is demanded by the clubs in respect of playing and training performance.
That report from David Fordham of Network 10. Now, looking at the power and success of the Australian game, you could easily get the impression that they're light years ahead of us. But that's not the case. There are clubs in this country that are a fair match for the best Australian club sides. But alongside them are others in the English game who find it a struggle simply to survive. The huge gulf between the top and bottom is seen as one of the biggest problems facing rugby league in this country. Peter Pitt has been looking at two examples of this great divide.
This is Central Park, home of Wigan. Wigan have been so outstandingly successful in the Rugby League that they're almost in a league of their own, barely beaten this season and runaway champions. Even on a wider stage, they're unstoppable, accepted as a match for any club side in the world. Difficult to believe then that a few years ago, mighty Wigan, languishing in the second division, came to Huddersfield and were beaten. Since then, however, while Wigan have scaled the heights, Huddersfield have struggled to survive. From their proud heritage as the birthplace of rugby league to today's sorry picture of decay. Off the field, every stand has been labelled as unsafe. On the field, the story has been a sad one too, with scant success to record. Great though this contrast may be, it's just one example of a widening divide across the rugby league. At Wigan, from the moment the players arrive on match day, everything exudes success and money. It's all been achieved since a remarkable change of direction 5 years ago. The club had debts of £250,000, but by taking a hard-nosed commercial attitude, one example, attracting sponsors by lavishly wining and dining them and their guests, they've turned that into a £135,000 profit. Everything at Wigan makes money. Even the hallowed boardroom was cleared to provide a club for privileged supporters who pay very handsomely for the honour. Success on and off the field has been masterminded by director Maurice Lindsay and his coach Graham Lowe. Their secret can be summed up in one word: Australia.
I think when we first came onto the board, the four members took a radical look at the English game, took a realistic look at the Australian game, which was leaping ahead both in playing standards and on the commercial side, and decided that we needed to change, basically. So we went to Australia, we had a look how they did things, how they played, how they trained, what their approach to the whole business was, and I must confess we copied, but we threw a lot of effort into it, and it has resulted in some success.
Success comes in the form of £1 million worth of players and arguably the best rugby league coach in the world, New Zealander Graham Lowe, who has all the professionalism of the game down under.
You blitzed these blokes last time, you blitzed them good and proper. You just went off a little bit because you started trying to duck all over the field. No sidestepping, no trying to weave in and out, just go for your quit, pin your ears back and go.
The Lowe approach is ultra-professional. Discipline in the complex game plan, discipline in diet and relentless training, and winning aggression. The player's reward can be a salary to match the Prime Minister's.
Well, financially, it can be very rewarding indeed. As for emotional, it's great. I mean, we've won the Lancashire Cup twice and the John Player twice since I've been in the side, and a few other new players. It's very rewarding indeed.
What about the feeling of going out in front of a huge crowd like the one you've had there today?
It's fantastic. I mean, you're about 6 feet tall. Well, in my case, 6 feet tall, because I'm only short. But your chest sticks out. As soon as you walk out, the crowd starts cheering. It's just unbelievable.
This crowd at Wigan is 13,000. Over at Huddersfield, just 370 people have turned up for today's game. Gate receipts won't even cover the players' wages, £70 each if they win. And finding the cash to pay for new players is a constant headache. At Huddersfield, they're bitter at the way the top teams pay big inducements and huge salaries, pricing their poorer cousins out of the market. Coach Jack Addy would like to see a statutory wage for players. The alternative is that his promising youngsters will be lured away. The stands need expensive improvements following the Bradford City fire, so the fans are restricted to the open terraces. Even the director's box must remain eerily deserted during the match. The chairman himself, John Bailey, has to sit below in the concrete dugout. Having taken on the unenviable burden of keeping the club afloat, his solution has been to focus his attention away from the immediate problems with team and ground. Instead, he's concentrated on promoting profitable wedding parties and social events at the adjacent pavilion.
My philosophy has been that if we have a sound financial base to work from, then clearly we would be hopefully in an awful lot better position to get the rugby league side of it right as a secondary measure. You know, our local club Halifax have chosen to do it the other way, and God bless them, there they are through to Wembley. The best of luck to them. It's exactly the reverse way around to I, particularly because I'm not a deep-rooted rugby league man originally, so obviously I'm far happier backing my judgment to the things I feel I can do better, and that certainly is a commercial operation at the club. Once we've got that right, then I'm quite sure that the rugby league side of it, we can start to address the problems in a serious manner then.
Many of the fans who are left disagree. They see only a downward spiral, with no money spent on players, leading to no success on the field. And on the terraces, where 30,000 watched Huddersfield take every trophy, there are sad memories.
This is a rugby league town in Huddersfield. I mean, you know, you used to get 20,000 at one time regularly, but it's just so when you have success, it just drifts away from you. People just lose interest.
Some would say Wigan have recovered because they've always had a bedrock of crowd support and the help of some very rich local people. Huddersfield, goes the argument, aren't so lucky. But at Wigan, they say the great divide is about attitude.
Without being disrespectful to them, I think that there's probably a few teams around that are basically still the old 3 or 4 times around the paddock and a game of touch. Really, you know, that's not going to do anybody any good whatsoever. It's just it's a good time and a good opportunity to meet your mates. That's how I see it.
It's easy to stand up at the top and look down and criticise. But believe me, half of these people who are criticising couldn't do the jobs in the second division that we are doing, and the money we're having to do in the time. Most coaches in the second division, it's costing them money to do it. They love the game, and, you know, I don't care what they say up there.
If you put up a sign saying to the public, you pay £2 or £3 to come in here because we're selling you entertainment, and then that's what we've got to do. We're in the entertainment business. We've got to compete with Dallas and Dynasty. We've got to supply the public with excitement. So if you're charging money, no, you've got to work to the same standards as Wigan. You've got to deliver the goods.
In my opinion, the only answer is to merge clubs.
What do you mean?
Well, I think at this point in the game there has to be less clubs playing the game, unfortunately. The reason being that I think there are less people watching the game. We could play at a far better level, and there would be more players of a better calibre to go around.
Are Huddersfield going to be here next season, or are they going to be one of the clubs to go?
I think we're highly likely to be here. I wouldn't like to guarantee it.
At Wigan, the optimists feel rugby league is poised to become the next national sport. At Huddersfield, they're struggling just to stay in the game.
A graphic example, I think you'll agree, of the gulf that's developed between the top and the bottom in the Rugby League. Well, let's turn now to our guests in the studio. And first of all, David Oxley, how concerned are you about this ever-widening gap that apparently exists now?
Well, in any competitive sport, the winners and losers, those that succeed and prosper and those that are always struggling, Harry. My main concern, I have to say, is that we'll do what we've done far too often in our history and somehow legislate against those who are finding success through their energy and enterprise and getting their house in order, and somehow arrest that forward progress. Now, I'm dedicated to trying to make sure that that doesn't happen, and I think the current council and management are of that mind at last too.
What basically then is the root of the problem? Is it lack of cash or is it a lack of talented players, would you say?
Well, it's both, of course. Cash has always been important in the game, and the ways to it. But Malcolm's club, Castleford, have never been big spenders, never been in a position to be, but are always there or thereabouts when it comes to winning honours. And Doncaster this year, the new regime there, have shown what can be done from modest, in fact, even very, very difficult beginnings. We certainly have got to get our player production right, though, our production line. As we've seen, the gap there, compared with Aussies, for instance, is very, very big, and that's another issue.
And isn't the production line part of the amateur game as well? There still is a gulf between the amateur game and the professional side. I mean, isn't it time that you really knocked the barriers down and started to play the same game together?
We do for most of the time, and of course, yes, Barla are largely responsible for the development of young players, and they have some very ambitious and I think very progressive and forward-looking plans about development areas, centres of excellence, and bringing on the youth game, without which we can't prosper, that is true.
Well, let's move on to Mal really now. You've got the job, Mal, of trying to beat these Aussies who we've seen. Now, are you worried, really, that there isn't enough homegrown talent to take the Australians on?
Obviously, yes, it is a concern, a major concern. Australia are very well geared up with the supply of young footballers to the top teams. And of course, we must work closer with Barla than probably we have been doing. But there are some good juniors coming through, I'm pleased to say. Castleford in particular have signed some good amateurs this season, and we're renowned for developing these youngsters. And of course, we are looking forward to the Colts of today to come through to be the stars of tomorrow.
But what about all these Australians and New Zealanders, though, who are coming over into our game? Is it actually a good thing, from your point of view, that we have to invite top Australians to come over and have huge salaries? Is it good for the game?
Well, they are draw cards to our game over here. Everyone would like Wally Lewis playing for them, I'm sure. He's a natural big draw card for any team. And to be honest, we at Castleford have had our fair share of imported players over. Unfortunately, our budget hasn't been the same as some of the first division clubs, but we've tended to choose wisely, and they've paid dividends for ourselves. Bob Linder, the last Australian that came over, the marvellous footballer. And I think the big difference is with these people, they are truly dedicated to the game.
It worries you, though, when you hear someone like Noel Cleal say, well, when he trained with Widnes, it was two laps around the park and then into the pub. I mean, are we really that naive over here, or is he looking at the wrong side of the game?
Well, apart from other comments that Bob Linder made whilst returning to Australia, he did mention that Castleford's training, physical training sessions were as hard as he's ever encountered. So teams and clubs do differ. All I can say is that the international players who are preparing this close season for the forthcoming tour of Australia will be physically conditioned and prepared for the games. I don't think by that time we should require any further fitness standard. David, is the game really going to take off now? Because we've seen that there are problems in the game. Is there a good footing for it to leap off from now?
Well, I think there is. We've had tremendous feedback, not least from the television exposure this season, Harry. We've had some wonderfully entertaining games. And, of course, the First Division will be 14 strong only next season. A tremendous competition, very much on the lines of the Sydney competition, where teams play virtually test matches. Enormous pressure on people like Malcolm, the coaches, and so on, and no doubt on the players and the chairman. But that's what they want. That's what they're asking for now, and that's what they're demanding. And I think the future is very, very good.
Just a quick word, David, a blunt answer, if you don't mind. Will clubs have to fold for the league to get stronger?
Yes, these things never come together where timing is concerned in complete harmony, and it could well be that we have some casualties along the way before we actually attain the high standards which Maurice Lindsay was talking about in a general sense.
David and Mel, thank you very much indeed. Well, let's put the problems of the game behind us now and look ahead to tomorrow's Challenge Cup final. It's a real David and Goliath encounter, isn't it? Alex Murphy's mighty St Helens against Halifax, the small town club who've come good in recent years. The Halifax Building Society dominates a town which in the past has known little sporting success. But the Rugby League boys have changed all that. Getting to Wembley by beating Widnes in the semi-final was a dream come true for the club. 5 years ago, they nearly folded.
The tax man was owed £78,000. The gates were about £1,000 a match. It was losing something like £1,500 a week, and they all thought I'd got death wish 3, wanted to be associated with this place. Anyway, we got stuck in. We knew it was a rugby league area, you see, Halifax. It goes back to 1878. And we knew that if we showed some kind of success on the field, the crowds would come back.
And they did. Halifax won the championship last year. The fans at last had something to cheer. But two men masterminded it all. The club president and Australian player coach Chris Anderson, the club's best ever signing.
He's a wonderful man for team spirit. He's a great leader of the game. He's a quiet motivator as opposed to an extrovert one, you know, an arm around the shoulder type rather than a top thumper. But he can bring the best out of players, commands enormous respect because he does know literally so much about the game, and yet basically he's one of the lads.
Anderson knows all about Wembley. In 1975 he won a winner's medal with Widnes. 12 years on, his beard and wild looks have gone, but the skill hasn't deserted him. Against Hull Kingston Rovers in the quarter-finals this time round, he was superb.
Oh, that was a good tackle. Still going. Is he in? Yes, he is. Skipper Chris Anderson. Well, again, Colin Whitfield, he insists on throwing this ball to anybody, but it could have worked. There's a try there. Yes. It's Chris Anderson's second.
Anderson has taken to Halifax like the town has reacted to him, and in his last year as a player, he's ready for Wembley.
I just can't believe the fever pitch in town, that, you know, the people just don't stop talking about it, and this is an unbelievably bigger thing than a championship to them. So, yeah, from the emotional point of view, it's a tremendous thing. It's one of the greatest things you can achieve, I think.
But Anderson also acknowledges the role fellow Australian Graham Eadie has played as well. He's also playing his last season, having been persuaded out of retirement for one final year.
By this Australian fullback Graham Eadie.
All that goes down to Chris and David Brooke. You know, they persuaded me to come over, and you know, early on you know, the rustiness was still there, but you know, now it all seems to be going well.
The town will just about be closed tomorrow. It's off to Wembley, and the club aim to enjoy every minute of it. After all, it hasn't happened for 31 years.
There'll be nothing spared. Like the banquet on Saturday night will be something that London's never seen before. Champagne flowing, win or lose, but we don't think about losing, we will win.
No one doubts that Halifax can do it, especially if their Aussie connection really puts it all together. But what of an unbiased opinion? We thought we'd ask someone who knows the Australians very well.
Oh, well, darling, there's, you know, Chris Anderson, he's right little cutie, Chris is. And they've got that Keith Nella, he's a big boy. I've had a few dues with him before, and he's really got me going a few times.
More from Neil Holding, the St Helens joker, in a moment. St Helens have been to Wembley twice in the last 12 years. Here in '76, they beat Widnes.
And if he bounces right, he's in. And he bounces right, and he's in. And he butted it down, Peter Glenn. What a moment for this boy.
The class of '87 is good as well. In the semi-final against Lee, they played well within themselves. But no one underestimates them, especially their coach, Alex Murphy. He's been to Wembley many times, but this means a great deal to him.
Oh, it's a nice chip. Oh, is he in? Yes, he is.
We've done exceptionally well. You know, we've not spent a lot of money at the club, and we've played some tremendous football. We've had a great season, but to take the town back, I mean, St Helens, to me, St Helens belong at Wembley, and we've sold 25,000 tickets in 10 days. So really, you can tell the atmosphere. The only problem what I worry about is that word of the 25,000 on a match day.
Apart from his impressions, Holding's role on the field in Murphy's old number 7 shirt is crucial. He puts St Helens' success down to two things.
Alex Murphy came along and he gave the lads the inspiration, the motivation to go. The lack of confidence which was shown just that little bit, and he came along and inspired us to bring out the best in every player. But the other thing I would think is that the lads have got that bit of confidence in each other, which was just lacking, and everything just seemed to come right at the right time.
Arkwright. Oh, superb dummy. He sends them the wrong way, and he's in.
Alex, it has been suggested by, I think, Chris Anderson, the Halifax captain, that the St Helens route to Wembley was a rather easy one. How do you react to that?
Well, I put that down as sheer garbage, to be honest, and there's only an Australian could say that. And Chris, in my opinion, we've got to Wembley on merit. We beat the team who knocked Wigan out, but because we knocked them out, it wasn't classed as a victory. and we're there because we will probably be the best side Halifax has played this year. And I would heed a word of warning to Chris. It's easy talking, it's a lot harder saying it and doing it.
Tommy, what do you think of the Halifax side?
Well, I think they've done well to get to Wembley, and I think that they've got a lot of star players, but I think the Saints have got a few more up their sleeves.
Master mimic Neil Holding, who obviously thinks his side will hold the whip hand at Wembley tomorrow. But let's end on an impartial note with the views of our guests in the studio. Briefly, David, who do you fancy for tomorrow's game?
Well, Saints are a super side and Murphy's magic, but I'm a sucker for fairy stories with happy endings. So for Chris's 35th birthday, David Brooks, Stan Ackroyd, all the lovely people at Halifax, I'm going for the Thromolers.
OK, Mal, well, you were there last year. Who do you fancy this time?
Well, I think the advantage that Halifax have is Chris, the coach, being on the park there. Although I think Alex will make his voice heard somewhere on the paddock. Basically, my heart says Halifax. I will be supporting Halifax, but my head says they're a little bit sharper, St Helens, and I think they could win.
Thanks, Mal. Well, in 24 hours, we'll know if those predictions have come true. Let's just hope it's a good game. From us all, good night.
Against Halifax promises to be a splendid occasion.
Halifax isn't exactly renowned for its sporting success, but in the past 2 years, the Rugby League boys have gone a long way to changing all that. Champions in '86, they're now back at Wembley for the first time in 31 years. Against Widnes in the semi